Hello, this is Rocky Bleier. You may know me as a four-time Super Bowl champ with the Pittsburgh Steelers. What you may not know is that I'm a combat veteran of the Vietnam War. The film Back to China Beach is the real story as told by veterans who were there and how many found a little bit of happiness and home at the beaches of Vietnam. Also what their life has been like for the past 50 years. Now many veterans tell their stories for the first time in this film. Back to China Beach is the real story told from the heart.
Some people are very famous. Other people are sort of famous. But most of us aren't famous at all. But we all have one thing in common. Everybody's got a great story now and again. Please welcome to Their Stories. And today, like always, we have a phenomenal guest with us who happens to be remote today because he's on the other side of the United States of America. And we're in Pensacola at the Cradle of Naval Aviation. If you like the military, you like history, you like football, this guy has got it all rolled into one. He was a star football player in high school, All-American in college with Notre Dame. I believe he won the national championship. He went on to get drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers. He also got drafted by the United States Army at the same time. And he's a great American because he volunteered to go to Vietnam. And unfortunately, early on, he had a very serious injury, was informed he would never play football again. And really not too long after that, he started winning Super Bowls, so never say never. Everybody, please give a nice welcome to our guest today, a great patriot, great American, and great human being, Mr. Rocky Bleier. How you doing, Rocky?
I'm fine, Mike. How are you doing? It's good to hear your voice. It's always nice to talk to you, so thank you for having me on the show.
Well, thanks for agreeing to come on the show. We're going to actually meet you in person on the 30th this month in Fort Walton Beach. The Chamber's doing a huge tribute to Vietnam veterans, and you are the keynote speakers.
Right, yes, I'm looking forward to that. You know, it's with the anniversaries that are coming up, the 250th anniversary of our military, the 50th, anniversary of the end of Vietnam. So there's a lot of activities, and it's a opportune time, if you haven't thought about it, to be able to thank veterans, no matter where they are, who they, when they served, because they all served our country, and very admirably as well. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, we just got signed to film the Regional Marine Corps League ball for the 250th. We've done the last 2 years, but this obviously is very special. And I've got a son-in-law that was a tanker when the Marines had tanks. And he said he just took off 60 pounds so he can get in his damn uniform. And they're coming.
That's great.
Yeah, so him and my daughter are going to come down from Charlotte, North Carolina, for the ball. So we're real proud of him, and that's going to be a great thing. Well, look, let's get to it. You got a lot to talk about. Let's go back to where you grew up, and your high school athletic career, and then you go into Notre Dame. So let's kind of start back when you were the young kid.
Yeah, so young kid. So I grew up in Appleton, Wisconsin. Population about 35,000 at the time. Paper mills dotted the area, and my father owned a local bar, neighborhood shop beer joint, and we lived there, and that's where we grew up. But it was kind of an ideal time, and I tell people today, because it's somewhat difficult, and I'm very pleased to be able to be a part of the baby boomer onset, that had moved. So you come into a time and an era, so we were a block from the grade school, we were a block from downtown. People would come into the bar all the time, so you had friends, and the neighborhood was surrounded that grade school area, and so it was very convenient. And so my friends were all around there, and you play. You play, you play outside. That was, that was a time when television did not dominate. There was no cell phones, tweets, posts, texts that would eat up your time, and so you just had to, you had to make your own fun, and so it was lovely, and because of that, and I just say that, and because of that, baby boomer boost, now there's a need for more high schools. And so all of a sudden there's a brand new Catholic high school that was built in Appleton. And so what the importance of that was because it drew kids from the area to that school. Those kids that might have ended up in the public schools around the area, all migrated towards this brand new Catholic school. And because of that, you get a plethora of just good athletes, kids that played, and we have a terrific coach by the name of Torchy Clark who comes in, and during that period of time as that school developed, we had never lost a football game.
Wow.
And we lost 5 basketball games, and we were the number 1 ranked team in the state of Wisconsin, both in football and basketball. And I say this not to brag, but because the kids are playing, and because of the success of that team and my teammates and so on, you kind of get recognized for your contribution, and because of that, you get a chance to continue your education. And so I get scholarship offers from around the area, from state schools to University of Wisconsin, the Big Ten schools, and I got one from Notre Dame, and so my parents didn't go to college. There was no allegiance to any one school like there is at times, and so now you have to make a decision of where you're going to go. And so I didn't want to. The fact is that I chose there was a patron that had stopped into Dad's bar, and he gave a piece of advice. He said, "You're going to get a lot of scholarship offers." He said, "By the time you see all the schools, you go see 5, 6, 7 schools or so, they're all going to roll up the red carpet, and you have to come back and you got to make a decision. And how do you make that decision?" He said, "My opinion is choose 3 schools that you would like to graduate from. Not necessarily play football, but graduate from, because anything can happen in your athletic career. You can get hurt and not play and so on. But it's what you do with that education." And I thought, well, that just made eminent sense. And so I chose 3 schools: University of Wisconsin, Notre Dame, and Boston College, because we had a patron that went to Boston College and said, "Hey, I can get you an interview at Boston College." And I thought, "Oh, okay, fine, I'll go out there."
I mean, you're still talking top shelf with all those schools. I mean, this is not like the junior college down on the corner, right?
Right,
These
yeah,
are
and so
fantastic
it's
schools.
just, it wasn't. So anyway, so as I tell people, I said, then I did what every good Catholic boy was taught to do. That was to go to church, of course, to pray for guidance and direction, and then, like every good Catholic boy, well, I did what my mother wanted me to do, and that was to go to Notre Dame. So that's how I ended up at Notre Dame, and we had a brand new coach that came in at that time in 1964. My freshman year, Era Parsegian, coming
Wow.
from Northwestern as an assistant coach, and took over the reins. And obviously, his legacy talks well of what he has accomplished at the university. But the other interesting thing, and you talk about stories, no matter where we are, what we've done, there's always something that, either is there to support you or help you along the way. In 1964, you can go and look this up, the NCAA changed the substitution rule. Prior to 1964, at the change of the ball, you could only substitute 3 players. So we didn't have defense offensive swaps. 3 players would run out. Quarterback would come out, maybe receiver, somebody else, and 3 guys would run in. That changed, which ultimately opened opportunities for more players to be on the field. And because of that, people were moved around, good athletes moved over to defense and so on, and you get into position to be able to play. Now, the the second thing, and this happens, is that new coaches, his recruiting class becomes his class. I was the first class, and all my teammates were his class. So if you were not a starter, and another caveat here was that freshmen did not play, so you got the chance to play by your sophomore year. So if you were a sophomore and you weren't a starter, you were automatically a backup. So we had an all sophomore backfield that was and so you got a chance to play. We played well. We got a chance to play in the third, fourth quarter. The senior running back who was ahead of me got hurt the last couple games, and so I got a chance to at least start in those games. And just being at the right place at the right time. And so we come back the following year, and we win a national championship in 1966, and we got a plethora of great players. Terry Hanratty was a young quarterback. Jim Seymour was a receiver for us, and Alan Page was playing for us, and so we had just and all of a sudden, because of that success, you get kind of recognized for your contribution, to a team, and because of that, the NFL draft comes. Unlike today, and so let's just put this in it. Unlike today, it was not as demonstrated. It wasn't on television, and so on. I'd get a couple letters in the mail. If we draft you, would you play for us? What are they going to write? No. Of course you go yes.
Yeah, I wondered how that works.
Yeah. That's right. And it was a form letter, and they kind of sent it back, and so the draft. I remember the draft was taking place, and so I wasn't expecting to be, like a number one pick or any of that kind of stuff. That was not. And so I finally. We were out to dinner, my roommate and myself, with a couple of my teammates. We were over at a Notre Dame supporting a family that lived in South Bend, and so they had us over for dinner. And so we're having dinner, and we're having a couple of libations after dinner, and the news came on in the NFL draft today. So-and-so from Indiana was drafted, so-and-so from Indiana State was drafted, and Notre Dame's captain, Bob Rocky Bleier, drafted number 16th by the Pittsburgh Steelers. There was a pause with all my friends standing there.
This is the first time you're hearing this, or you're watching on TV.
That's right, this is the first time I'm hearing this. And they go, hey, congratulations. Anyway, so what are we going to do for spring break? Are we going to Florida or aren't we going to Florida? Are you going home? What's the...
Yeah, like they passed right over it.
That was the extent.
Yeah, a moment of greatness goes down the drain, right, with your friends.
Right, that's it. That was it. And so that was it. And so just as a matter of fact, as this the little story goes, and how is that I got a call from a local businessman in South Bend who negotiated contracts for Notre Dame players who got drafted in the NFL for nothing. He just liked the fact that you would sign a picture, say thanks for the contract and so on.
Exactly.
And so I was, and so anyway, he called. He said, "Can I be your agent?" Yeah, I didn't have an agent. I go, "Oh, yeah, that'd be fine. Thank you." And so he talks to the Steelers, and he comes back, and he goes, "Okay, fine. Here, I got you. This is the deal. I got you. You got a $500 signing bonus.
Wow.
$12,500 for the first year, and $13,000 for the second year, 2-year contract, and another $500 if you make the team." Oh, okay. I go, well, okay. I guess that was it.
Yeah.
So I went and I ran into Era, and Era said to me, "Did so-and-so call you about the contract?" And I said, "Yeah." And I said, What did he get you?" And I explained to him what he got to me. He became irritated. The minimum was $12,000.
Right.
Okay, right at that time, and so he goes, because from Era's point of view is that whether you're the first round draft choice, or at that time there were 17 rounds, or the 17th round draft choice, and you made the team, shouldn't your, money be somewhere in the middle? I mean, guys who didn't make the team, who got contracts before that, blah, blah, blah kind of stuff. And so he got on the phone and he renegotiated my contract.
Wow.
So he got me $2,500 signing bonus and $15,000 and $18,000.
What year?
So
What year
that was it.
What was the year? What year was it?
68.
Yeah, well,
1968.
yeah, that same figure today would be, of course, considerably more. But yeah, I mean, it's
Right. Anyway, so that was it, and so so that's how I got to Pittsburgh.
yeah, I mean, it's just professional sports in general. That's a whole nother interview of the money and all this stuff now. And I guess
That's right. Yes.
they're paying college players now. Somebody said in Florida they're going to be paying. They're going to the high school players are going to be able to sell their images for sponsorships. And stuff.
I know it, and where it's gone today, that becomes very
Well, it's
disturbing to me.
Yeah, I mean, we're in a business that, everybody wants to be on the boob tube or whatever, and and you got to wear, I work with a lot of interns and people like that. I said, study your heroes. They don't just do one thing; they're doing multiple things in the industry. So I said, because if you want to make a living at it, if one thing falls through, then you're done. But I said they do multiple different things. If they're a good singer, they're probably a good dancer. They might be a good actor. They may do plays, or they may be a writer. So anyway, now did you make the team?
I made the team. Yes, so I made the team.
And
so I made the team, which was very exciting, obviously, and to be able to play. But it was, but now, so what we have to factor in at this period of time was that there was a little conflict that was going on the other side of the world, over in Vietnam, and it wasn't a popular war over there. Although the draft board was very busy at the time trying to get people and personnel, and so people became eligible, for the draft after they turned 18. You got a college deferment or a school deferment, and then you were eligible, for the draft. So I remember at that one moment in time, early in my career, at that moment, it was one of the happiest days of my life. Was towards the end of training camp, and so we're going, and Bill Austin was the head coach for the Steelers at that time, and so I ran into him. He said, "You get a second? I'd like to talk to you." He said, I said, "Yes." He said, "Listen, we got this letter in the mail. It was accidentally opened, and it was my 1A classification, which now made me eligible for the draft."
Yep.
He said, I think you're, he said, "You're good enough to make this team." He said, "And we'll take care of this for you," whatever that meant.
Right.
It was like, and I was just thinking, they get me in the reserve or the National Guard or whatever it is, and that's where they were placing, some of the people at that time fulfill the obligation, but you weren't necessarily going to be gone during the football season. And so, okay, fine. Well, time went by, a month went by, another month went by, and so I went to the Steeler office and I said, "Hey, have you heard anything about this? We're having problems. Our problem is that, the general retired, the congressman got defeated, so we're running against these barriers." And it was 1968, the height of the war. I mean, the height of the draft, and so people were filling all those spots, and so I changed my draft board from Wisconsin to Pittsburgh, to Pennsylvania, just to buy some time.
Right.
And then so I remember the day. It was sitting in front of my locker. It was early part of December. It was hanging over my head because I hadn't heard anything from anybody, and all of all of a sudden one of the equipment men said, "Hey, Bleier, there's a letter over here for you."
No, geez.
And so, and so I stood up, walked over to the table and perused through the mail, and there it was, a letter. And so I opened it up very tenderly, slipped out the paper, as I tell people, it was for my uncle.
Yeah.
My Uncle Sam. Greetings, it said. We'd like to inform you that you've been inducted into the armed services of your country. Now, that was the worst fan letter I've ever received in my life. But anyway, to report the next morning at 7 a.m. to be inducted into the armed service. So it didn't give me a whole lot of chance or time to mourn. I just had to get my stuff together, call my parents and pack up, and said I'm off, and off I went.
Huh. My brother he was an athlete, but in fact we were both enrolled into Georgia Military Academy as kids in elementary. I mean, I was put in there at first grade. I was a boarder, and then you're standing out in the rain and the snow at Reveille at 6 a.m. They don't care that you're 6 years old. You better stand at attention or else. But he helped me through. He was kind of my hero, but also came from a family of pilots. He was a lifelong pilot, and so was my dad. But my brother was one of these kids at like 12 years old. He hitchhiked to the local private airport and helped guys fuel up and just did volunteer work, and eventually got his solo. And then at 15, I think he became a private. At 18, he became a commercial rated pilot, multi-engine, had well over 1,000 hours. Well, we were from Atlanta, and lots of friends work with Delta and Eastern, and a very good friend of our family was the chief pilot at Eastern. And my brother, as kids, I would go, you could ask me today, they go, Mike, what are you going to be when you grow up? Oh, I'm going to be a fireman. And then the next week, oh, I'm going to be a professional golfer. And the next week, my brother would look you right in the eye from about 10 years old and on. I am going to be a pilot for Eastern Airlines, period. And I mean, like, what? This kid's really weird. But he got the interview. Actually, he was too short by a half an inch. And our friend Dick Bomar, who was a fighter pilot in World War II, an ace, sent him down to a chiropractor, and they actually put him on a rack, and they stretched him. And he ran back to the interview, and he said, well, you passed the height. Now you got another problem. We're short of pilots because of Vietnam. But if we hire you now, and they were flying the Electras. I don't know if you remember, the prop jet Electras was like a bus service from Boston to D.C. and to New York. And it was like, I think it was $12. You paid cash to the flight attendant when you got on the plane. And they needed pilots for that. And that's where you start. Well, he was all of 19 years old, just about 20.
Wow. Yeah.
They said, we're not going to spend all this money and time training you for the next, and he would be an easy train because he was already multi-rated, instructor rated, I mean, just way advanced for his age. They said, so you got to go join the military. We want you to go join the reserves, put in your 6 months, and then we'll let you have time off when you have to go to summer camp and all that. My brother we were both kind of daredevils. He was crazy.
Yeah.
He goes down and signs up for the Airborne Marines. I'm like, why don't you sign up for like a desk job? If you break your neck or your legs, it could be over for you as a pilot. Oh no, man, and the first jump he had, he tangled up with his partner coming down with the static lines. Yeah, but he did it, came back, and the rest is history. And I don't think he's ever gotten over the fact that Eastern Airlines, bit the dust. That's a guy named Frank Lorenzo, but he worked for Frank Borman for many years. It was wonderful. But it was the same situation. They were in a business, and I'm sure in the NFL, they're losing players. Well, these guys are losing pilots. And, but of course, all those guys, when they got out, they got airline jobs, after that. But you had some pretty young kids flying planes during that period. So anyway,
Yeah, you did.
You're like my brother. You volunteered for Vietnam, I hear.
well, I think it was. I don't think there was much of a choice.
Right. You're going.
At that time.
Yeah. And I also heard that you didn't have like a little cook's job. You were like a hand grenade launcher kind of guy.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, you get your orders, and obviously it was the majority of people were going to Vietnam at that time, and so it was. And I got into the country in May of 16.
Wait, I got to interrupt you though. Let's back up a little bit.
Okay.
I understand that you had a great relationship with the Rooney family and the old man.
Oh.
And what did they tell you?
So the Rooney family, it wasn't, and I should say this. Well, that comes later.
Okay.
So the Rooney family was a great. I mean, they were a great family.
Right.
et cetera. And so their input for my career really came in later when I came back.
Okay.
And,
All right. Okay. So I'm getting it.
that's
I got it.
not to take anything away from them at this point in time.
Okay.
So I got drafted. Boom. So I had to go, and so I went. I went through basic training and AIT training, and so on, and then got my orders and ended up over in Vietnam. But the process, and I tell people, I said, you kind of understand you're in the military at that moment in time, and so I get drafted, and so I got drafted in December, early part of December 3rd or so, and by the time you get down to basic, you go through basic, you go through basic training, or you get prep to go into basic training. So we're 1 week into basic training, and it's Christmas. So I get a leave.
Right.
So I get a leave. I leave basic training, and I hitchhike back to Wisconsin, see my folks, and then I came back again and finished basic, and I got another leave after basic.
Right.
And then went home again, and then came back to did AIT, and then got another leave before when I got my orders. That was to go to Vietnam, 2 weeks leave, and then I had to report to San Francisco. Well, you report to San Francisco, and you go through the process, and you're there for 3-4 days, and then all of a sudden you get your orders. They ship you over overseas, and then you get your orders to go to Vietnam, and then you get your unit. But then you got to go through some process, So it's a period of time. So I finally get over there in May of '69, and I get with my unit, and so the commanding officer there saying, okay, or the first sergeant, I should say, actually, he said, okay, fine, what we need is a grenadier, so you're going to be carry grenade launcher. And so along with that, I had to carry, I had to carry 60 rounds of grenades, and so it was heavy. Anyway, so that's how I got to be a grenadier.
Right. So you're not in country. I don't know the exact timeline, but you're now in combat, and something bad happens, and
right. Yeah. So we were in I Corps. Just for those your listeners out there, in the southern part of I Corps, we were out of Chulai, Hepduck, down in the Hepduck area. For those who may remember, the Marines had the northern part of I Corps, along the DMZ border up there, and they patrolled that and then moved on. So during this process and so on, and into August, was that there was a movement by the Marines pushing a regiment of NVA players down south, and we, the Americal Division, which I was a part of, was a retaining force, so to speak. And anyway, so all of a sudden we were part of this movement. And as a private, you didn't know what was going on. You just did what they told you to do, and
right.
And where we had to go. And so I didn't find this out until much later. And so that was that kind of a movement that was organized at headquarters, and would need to be done. We were just a part of it. So I got to take you there. We knew the enemy was in the area somewhere, coming down, and we were on patrol, and we're walking on an open rice paddy 40 yards in front of me. I was about 6th or 7th in line. 40 yards in front of me, I saw movement across this berm, body movement. And so he hollers out, gook, gook. And all of a sudden, shots break the stillness. The enemy starts to run, and he starts to chase them, pulling everybody out in the middle of this rice paddy. When all of a sudden, a machine gun nestled in the bushes up on a cliff started to to scrape the area and level the area. Bodies were diving left and right to get out of harm's way, and I drove into a rice paddy in front of me, crawled on my hands and knees to the end of that rice paddy. Found four guys who were pinned down out in the open, and I saw the machine gun was nestled back up on the hillside in the bushes, and so that was my responsibility, having a grenade launcher to get some firepower onto that position. When I rolled over and breached my grenade, all of a sudden I felt a thud in my left leg. It started to burn and bled. I was hit for the first time that day. So we discharged that round. We were in a firefight. The four guys who were pinned down got out of there, and we crawled back to a wooded area with the rest of the other guys coming back in, and we set up this defensive position. So the enemy starts to probe or come towards us, probing there, and they get close enough at this one point when all of a sudden out of the corner of my eye, I saw a hand grenade come flying through the air. And my commanding officer was prone, looking out over the paddies, and it hits him right in the middle of the back, and it bounces off of him, and it rolls towards me, and I jump to get out of the way, and it blows up through my lower feet and legs, and again I was hit for the second time that day.
You were hit on each side, right? One with the bullet and the other one
with
with
the left side and then the right side.
Okay.
Yeah, so then the right side.
Holy cow.
And so then we were in a firefight. Dropped back, more medic come over, wrapped what he could. But you got your adrenaline going, you got this fighting going on, and you can't, I can't walk or run. And so now they got to drag me out of there as we leave that area. We get some gunships that came in and helped us out. So then they carried me through the evening. Basically, they dragged me on a poncho liner as they best possibly can through the woods and so on. We're heading back to an area where helicopters would come in and get us out of that area. And so and then we finally got back there. And I got on a helicopter, went to the aid station, then went to Da Nang, and then
you didn't get to go surfing at China Beach at Da Nang? Was that out of the question at that point? Okay. All right.
I was waiting for it, but not yet.
Oh, I heard a story that you were that was going to be your first in country on R&R was going to be China Beach, and you were an inland boy going to go surfing.
That's right. And so then I ended up in Tokyo in the hospital. So I was in the hospital in Tokyo. And so prior to that, you got a morphine drip, and you can't do anything until they get the infection out of the way. They get so anyway, so it was when I was in Tokyo a couple weeks, I got a postcard from the Steelers, a postcard from Mr. Rooney, actually.
Right.
And it said,
now we could talk about the Rooneys, okay.
Right, yes. So it says on it, Rock, the team's not doing well. We need you.
Wow.
Art Rooney. And so, and one of the things, just, from your listener's point of view, just put that into perspective, obviously, was, very warm to be able to receive that from him, and it finally got to me, however that was. But that was the kind of person he was. It was a postcard because that's what he sent. He carried those 2-cent postcards
right.
that you could buy at the time.
Right.
And like us today, who get a phone and you text somebody, hey, it was great having dinner with you. Thanks for the lunch or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
He would write a postcard and send it in the mail to you. And that was his way of instant communication and being in touch with a lot of people. Also, it was came at the right time. But that was, that was the um, that was the kind of family they were. So,
That you took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say, it almost appears there's certain coaches out there, certain people. I've been a coach to musicians and people like that said, I may not be the greatest bass player in the world, but I'm good. But I can take a good guitar player and make him great for some reason. I just have that. I could get it out of that, and they tell me that. So it's like that's awesome. And how long? So how long did you stay in the hospital in Japan?
Well, so I was in the hospital in Japan for another. I finished a month there, so again, it was 2 weeks. I got another 2 weeks. I was there, and then I got shipped back to the States. I went to Fort Riley, Kansas, to the Army Hospital at Fort Riley, Kansas. And so I was there. And before I got out of the service, and I spent the rest of my time there at Fort Riley, Kansas.
I got you. And then you were discharged?
Yeah, then I was discharged. I was discharged because of the injuries that I had sustained, and it wasn't as if I could, go to reserve or National Guard and so on and so on and so on.
So what did they tell you about you?
But it gave me a chance. So I was there. I was at Fort Riley, Kansas, and it was one of those. I was an outpatient. Basically. So things had to heal. They don't heal overnight. Then they had to keep an eye on it, and so I had to get a job.
Huh.
I was appointed to a job at Fort Riley, Kansas, and the job was in plans, operation, and training, and so it was an office. So it was an office. Everybody who came to Fort Riley, Kansas, had a process through, whether you're an officer or whether you're an enlisted man. They all had a process through this office, and so we had to do all the paperwork, for that. But I had to be there at 7 o'clock. I got done at 3 o'clock, and so it gave me an opportunity to, start working out again, and so because I thought I knew I could get. Since I got drafted in December, I could get a 3-month early out of the service if I was on combat active duty, and so which I was. So that gets me out maybe in September, and I could go back to my employer, or my employer had to, give me an opportunity to come back. And so in the back of my mind, I was thinking, okay, fine. Well, I get out of the service, the SEALs are going to have to give me a shot or give me an opportunity. And so on, and so that was my plan. So I was trying to work out as best I possibly could, get this body back in shape. I'd go to the gym in the afternoon, run in the morning as I best possibly could, and hopefully, in playing sports. But like all of, so on to the listeners, like playing sports, there are some things you learn. Actually, it's something we learned growing up, no matter what we are, who we do, is that we have bumps and bruises, so your kids come in and they scraped their knee, they twisted their ankle, they stubbed their finger, they fell on their elbow, they cry, they want some tender loving care, put some analgesic on it or put a pad on it.
Yeah, but back then you had to walk it off. Mom and Dad, just walk it
off, give it a kiss, and then and so then you're back out playing the next day.
Right.
And so it was that kind of a mentality.
Right.
And so I started, to work out again, and I'd get up early in the morning, because the idea was, okay, maybe I can go back, and that was my goal, and so there was nothing else I was doing, and. So then I ran into, and then, so this was now getting to be like July, August, and unbeknownst to me, so I'm talking to this sergeant, and so he said, "Hey, did you know that you can get an early out?" I said, "Wait, no, what do you mean?" He said, "Yeah, you can get if you're on combat active duty." And the law changed. You can get a 5 went 3 out.
Oh,
I said, you're kidding me. He said, no. I said, so when can I get up? Tomorrow. I said, what?
huh.
Tomorrow? Yeah, here, you got to get this sign.
Right.
So I go, oh, okay, fine. Anyway, make a long story short, I go back to my commanding officer and tell him the sad story, blah, blah, blah. Can you give me the release? And he said, well, let me see your file. Okay, so I went and got the file, went back, he goes through. He said, was this the last time I saw you? Which was like in April, which was probably April or March or April. And I said, yeah. He said, did I tell you like when I should see you again? I said, no. And he goes, oh, okay, fine. He signed my release, obviously. And so I go back to the training camp. Now, I tell you that story because I go back to training camp, and the training camp, takes its toll. It beats me up. It's 2-a-days. And so, so I'm limping at the time and so on. And eventually Chuck Noll does what he has to do, and he releases me at the end of training camp, and he says, go home, do what's necessary, get yourself, back in shape, and, we invite you to come back next year. Okay, fine. So I was devastated when I got a call that next morning from Dan Rooney, Art's son,
Right.
who is now running the club. And he said, hey, I'm sorry I wasn't there yesterday. He said, I talked to Chuck. We're not going to take any spots on this team, but I'm going to put you on injured reserve. Maybe have our doctors take a look at you and see what needs to be done. And they bought, in which I got credited for. But that was a kind of family, because Dan's feeling was, hey, if he can serve our country, we can give him an opportunity.
Unbelievable. That's great.
And that's what they did. And so they gave me, they bought me a year and had another operation, but it gave me a chance to work out, to come back the following year.
Did you have to develop any kind of a prosthetic or a brace or anything, any special equipment for your legs?
No.
Really?
And I had some pads, just on my foot, but it wasn't, no, I didn't have any other special. They taped it, like they do normally and so on.
Right.
So it was fine.
That's unreal. Do you, and I mean, now something happens where you must have made the team and started winning football games. Is that what happened next?
Yeah, so anyway, so that year, so as I said, so I was on injured reserve and had another operation. I came back the following year. I just kind of have to put this in so I came back in 70 and in 71. They put me on the taxi squad. Okay, so the developmental squad, as they call. So,
Right.
Which is a step up better than the year before, so on. So then I came back the following year. Now it's 1972, a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger, and I was the leading ground gainer.
Wow.
In the exhibition season.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
We played 6 games, remember, back then.
Yeah.
Okay. Good enough to make the team. Never carried the ball the remaining part of the season. Back playing special teams, okay?
Right.
Came back the following year, 1973, a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger. By 1973, you have to understand, I weighed 218 pounds, which is a far cry from the 165 pounds I weighed when I came back from Vietnam. And I bench pressed 465 pounds.
Wow.
I squatted 600 pounds. And so I was the leading ground gainer during the exhibition season. Again.
Yeah. Give me a job after that.
Made the team, got to carry the ball once during the season. And so it was like 1974, in all honesty, like 1974, it was like, to come back, to make the team again.
Right.
To make the team again, I was going to have to fight with every free agent,
right,
draft choice, rookie, besides those who are already on the team,
Right.
to make the team. And I just didn't think it was going to work.
Right.
And I mean, I did come back. I made the team. I got a chance to play. More importantly, I got credited for my 5 years in the NFL for somewhat of a pension later on.
Right.
And I thought my life's going in another direction, and I left the team, and I quit.
Yep.
And I was in Chicago. I was selling life insurance for a friend of mine, and when I got a call, I think this becomes very important because you never know how your life's going to change. And I get a call from Andy Russell. Now, Andy played linebacker for us, and he was also captain of the football team. And he was coming into Chicago, and he called just because he wanted to get together, maybe for drinks or lunch. Hadn't seen one another, since the end of the season. As he said, it'd be great to get together again, but I'm not going back. And so I just declined, and he pushed, and I declined some more, and he pushed some more. And then he asked me the question, why? Well, the only thing I could blurt out at that time was, I quit. I'm not going back. And he said, you can't quit. If you quit, what you have already done is that you have already made a decision for that coaching staff. Do you like them well enough to make decisions for them? He said, no, your responsibility, if this is what you want, said you come back and you make them make a decision. You back them in the corner. You give them every reason to either keep you or release you. But God, you don't cut yourself. I mean, the reality of this game is that we're all expendable. The reality of this game is we all can be cut at any time. But if this is what you want, then you don't cut yourself.
Yep.
And maybe it was just the arm twisting I needed from an older brother that I didn't have, and I went back. And everything that I had perceived did take place. I had a fight with every free agent and draft choice and rookie once again to be able to make the team. Leading ground gainer during the exhibition season. Now, I put this into context, and I tell you that. Now, the reason that I was the leading ground gainer in those preseason games in those years previously wasn't because the fact that I was bigger, better, faster than all the other running backs. It was the simple fact that I played more than anybody else during that period of time. I carried the ball more than anybody else during that period of time. Given those two simple statistics, I better be the leading ground gainer during that period of time because all they were providing for me was what? An opportunity to be able to make the team. And they had to keep me. And as I tell people, I was the fifth running back out of 4 at the beginning of the season. Back playing special teams. When things happen, Franco Harris, our starting fullback, gets hurt. The backup becomes the starter. I become the backup to the backup. Wow, I'd never been there before. So with renewed vigor, that first game, second game, third game, fourth game, right before the half, the backup gets hurt. And I'm inserted in the game at fullback.
Welcome
along
aboard.
with my running mate, guy by the name of Preston Pearson, who finished his career with the Dallas Cowboys. And I tell you this only because he breaks one 43 yards down the sideline, scores, gives us a lead. We go on halftime. We go over assignments, adjustments. Who's going to start the second half? I'm thinking to myself, maybe those guys that got you the lead in the first half. And we get to start the second half, Preston and I. And as a team, we win that game. Now, the following week was a Monday night game, an extra day of healing. Franco now becomes healthy. Damn. Oh, that's okay. At least I got a chance to play, show, prove what I could do. And we had a pregame meal. We were breakout groups afterwards. We go over last-minute assignments, adjustments, and the coach looks around and he said, Franco, you and Rock will start tonight. You have to understand, momentarily I was quite confused. I didn't know how we both could play the same position at the same time.
Right.
When it dawned on me I wasn't going to play the fullback position as I had been playing, I was going to play the other running back position.
Right.
Nobody told me that. I wish they would have.
Yeah.
And we got a chance to start that game. And as a team, we won that game. We started the following week. And as a team, we won that game. And we started the remaining part of the season. And we won the division, got in the playoffs, won the playoffs, got to the Super Bowl, and won the Super Bowl for the first time. and played in 3 more Super Bowls. And in 1976, Franco and I became the second set of running backs in the history of the NFL, each to gain 1,000 yards rushing in the same season. Now, I tell you this only because of the fact that the reason I got a chance to play wasn't because of the fact I was bigger, better, faster than all the other running backs. That was not the case. It was the simple fact that Chuck Noll went to our backfield coach and he said, listen, you have a weakness in your backfield. Who is your best blocker? He said, Bleier. He said, then start him.
Yep.
One talent. And I tell people that because no matter how your career may go, no matter what you may do, we all have a talent, different than anybody else's. And it's our responsibility to be able to define that talent and to use it to the most and to the best of our ability. If it wasn't for that one talent, I never had that opportunity to be able to play or start playing all those games or to win those Super Bowls.
Hey, Rock.
So
things happen for a reason.
I learned.
Yeah, things happen for a reason. I don't believe in too many coincidences. But, I from Atlanta, but we grew up in Miami. I moved down there in the late 50s. The only thing happening was George Myra, Seminole Indian with the Hurricanes, but we got a thing called the Miami Dolphins. And you remind me of one of my favorite all-time Dolphins players. Wasn't the fastest, wasn't the biggest. He was the fakiest, and he was the clutch guy. Do you remember Howard Twilley on the Dolphins?
Yes.
So I just, I say that was the Howard Twilley on the Steelers, the go-to guy. It's like, oh, he's not going to do anything, and like he's the guy that won the game. So it's like, and Howard was a character as well. So it's just amazing. I mean, I've studied a lot of your pictures and stuff, and the positions that you would have to get in when they needed 5 yards or just to get the touchdown. And here you are. You look like you're flying above all these guys that are like 6'6", and I don't know if somebody took you and threw you in the air, but you're up there and you're catching the ball, which is just freaking amazing. Hey, we're kind of running around out of time. I did want to cover some other topics here, which all ties in together. I have people every day. How did you meet Rocky Bleier? I said, oh yeah, we're like best friends and everything. Now we talk all. It's like, no, and folks, Rocky's a regular dude. That's the difference. I've been in show business since I was 5 years old. You got a lot of people out there. They're on some kind of big freaking trip. By the way, most of those people never last. Once their career's over or whatever, they can do other things. But Rocky's like B.B. King in the blues. B.B. was just a nice guy, willing to talk to everybody, wanted to share a story, and was an inspiration. But we had released the movie, and I wanted to talk about Back to China Beach, which is the name our military people gave the beach in Da Nang, which is beautiful. And there was a TV show called China Beach, 88 to 92, Brian Wimmer, Robert Picardo, Dana Delaney from Melrose Place, and then also Apocalypse Now, that crazy movie, which maybe not have been that crazy if you were in Vietnam, did the scene with Robert Duvall and them surfing in the middle of a battle. But we released the film without any celebrity in the film. Everybody in the film is a Vietnam veteran, including a lady, Carol Law, whose husband was an F-4 instructor. They didn't send him to Vietnam. They sent her because she was a USO manager, and the USO in Da Nang was the very first USO ever operated in a combat zone, which Da Nang was.
Right.
And which was, the first night she's at a bar up on the roof of one of the motels, and she goes, oh, it's going to rain, and her girlfriend goes, oh no, that's incoming. Those are rockets. They shoot them at us every night here. So hit the deck. But so we released the film in November to critical acclaim with hundreds of Vietnam veterans and their families. But we then kept getting more footage and more photographs and more stories, so we kept adding. So I kept saying to my director, Dave Barnes, two-time Emmy winner, I go, there's something missing in this. There's something, I don't know quite what it is. We need somebody like a Gary Sinise or a Mark Wahlberg, but these guys they're not our age, and they didn't fight in Vietnam. I says, we need somebody that will give us some street cred, that this is like, unless these people are lying, this is like being there. And somebody sends me, said, Mike, have you seen this little video? Or it was like a mini documentary from ESPN of Rocky Bleier. And I go, what do you mean, the football player? He goes, yeah, do you know he's got a Bronze Star for Vietnam? I says, I didn't have a clue. So he sends me this little, that was like 20 minutes, Rocky. And they take Rocky, ESPN takes him over there. He goes to the battlefield, which today I've heard many, many other stories about it. It's emotional. It's trying, I think with Rocky, he's never told me this, folks, but I think going back to the scene, because I have a friend he's been over there now 23 times with veterans that have a lot of issues, and 9 out of 10 of them feel better when they come back here and they go back and kind of face their demons, so to speak. But Rocky went there. I watched this. I was moved by the whole thing. So I knew the producer because I think he had worked for, I think ESPN may have been owned by ABC at the time. We were doing, every week we were doing in the region national news. We were what they call a go-to independent production group. So the only people who worked for the network was who you saw on TV, the correspondent, and then whoever the producer was. So I called this producer and I said, hey man, I got this. He goes, oh yeah, China Beach, everybody's talking about your film. And he goes, let me call Rocky. I go, yeah, call Rocky. He calls me back in 10 minutes. He says, Rocky said, give him a call. I says, bull. I go, what? I'm going to get his secretary. He says, no. This is just like a cell phone. So I call Rocky Bleier. I go, hey, this is Mike. He goes, hey, yeah, I've heard they're telling me about this film. He goes, send me some footage. I don't know if I sent you the whole thing or some clips. And Rocky, folks, he calls me back like a bud in 45 minutes. He goes, this is great. What can I do for you guys? I'm like, what? Could you do like a minute or two in the beginning of the film to introduce the film? He said, send me the script. I sat down and like 2 minutes wrote the script. I set it up there. And he had another producer there that I guess because you do a lot of film work and you'd work with the Steelers and all. But anyway, so he did it, and we did a few little editing things. But your guy, I forget his name, we've become friends on Facebook. But that little bit of, hi, I'm Rocky Bleier. You probably know me as a 4-time Super Bowl champion, but I'm also a combat veteran for Vietnam. And Rocky's not an ego tripper, but I can be for my talent. And along the bottom of the screen is talking about Bronze Stars and Purple Hearts and all of this. And it took our film to another level, Rocky. Even though you didn't get to surf in China Beach, I'm going to take you there one day, and we're going surfing at China Beach. How's that? So it was.
Okay.
It affected so many people, and of course, I've talked to a couple hundred Vietnam veterans. We probably put 80 on film. There's about 30 actually made the cut. You know, you can't put everybody because you can have like a 20-hour film. But we did go to Vietnam in 2018, took a film crew, spent a week over there. And Rocky and I, we've had some laughs, including that producer, about the permitting and the fees and the Vietnamese police following you around. Did that all happen? Did that happen when you guys went over there? It was like a pain in the butt to get anything done.
Oh, yeah, that's right, it was, yes.
We went over there as a redneck family reunion from Pensacola, and we had all miniature XLR still cameras that shoot, what do they shoot, Mark, about 20 minutes of 6K video. It looked like we were shooting stills, but the very first day, I looked at our Vietnam veteran guide, and I said, Ronnie, I think cops are following us. He goes, oh, no, that's the secret police. They've been following us since the hotel. And I'm like, well, I pushed the envelope a little too far here. It looks like we ain't going home for a while. And so they kept trying to look in the cameras, and I'm like, so I look at the Vietnam vet guy to go, I learned this on the streets of Miami. I could psych somebody out, like making them think I'm crazier than they are. So I did that act, and I ran over to the guys, and I'm waving my hands. Hey, are you guys Vietnam? You're Vietnamese, aren't you? Hey, come over here. This is our family. We're from Pensacola, Florida. You know, the Blue Angels, blah, blah, blah. And I'm going crazy running around the scene, and I'm trying to drag these guys over to see the pictures we're taking. And I'm going, that's my aunt, but I think she's my cousin too. But, you know, we're from down south. We're all cousins. And these guys they could understand a little English. They finally looked at me like, you're the biggest nutcase we've ever met. They're shaking their heads, and they're walking off the beach. And I turn around, and our guide is in the sand, face down, laughing. I mean, he has just lost it. And I'm hoping they don't look at this guy. And so I go, Ronnie, what's happening now? And he was familiar. I mean, he was a truck driver at the Deepwater 3 years, and he got in a rocket through his truck one day. He got wounded pretty bad. And he goes, you're the biggest nut from America, but they need American tourists. So they've already called in on their walkie-talkie. They said, just hopefully those people got a bunch of money they can spend here. And the rest of the week was history. I mean, we surfed, we went everywhere. We really got a feel of what it would have been like then, and we had people that were there in the 60s and that, what was that, the big 1K up there? But we went Monkey Mountain and Marble Mountain, and I got to surf. One of my friends, Pat Schultz, helped us on 3 films. She's from South Africa, which she was the '78 women's surfing champion of the United States, and we got to show her off a little bit there and to the locals. But that's my story, and I hope to go back there with you again. I mean, it is really, it looks like Fort Lauderdale, actually, to tell you the truth. And the people in the South, they love us, and they want us there. It's weird. You talk to the vets, and I do it with Ronnie, and Ronnie had gone over there because he had psychological issues. He hid in his hotel room for 2 weeks, and this dude's 6'6", about 240, no fat on him, and he was scared to death. Right. He was a little Vietnamese. He came out, and everybody's like, "Hey, can we practice our English? You're American. This is great." Blah blah blah. So he started taking the vets back, and just to help people because it helped him. But he ended up staying 3 years and married a Vietnamese gal. But he lives in Oklahoma now. But so to you vets out there, it's worth going. If you've got no help here, I'm an old surfer, retired recently. I may do paddleboard, who knows? But I got a titanium hip, so we'll see what that does. But there's something about the water too, and I think Rocky, you picked up on it watching the film. It has a healing effect. So let's talk about the other thing is, and I'm going to shut up here for a minute. The 30th in Fort Walton Beach, they are doing a humongous tribute to Vietnam veterans, and guess who the keynote speaker is? I couldn't imagine. You.
Me?
You're the star. And in fact, I had to bribe some people this morning to get tickets. But I'd have gotten in anyway. But anyway, so and a bunch of us are coming over that are actually in the China Beach movie or helped with it. We're all going to be there, and I think under our suits we're going to have China Beach T-shirts on, so you'll know us. And so we can't wait. And so tell me, so today, folks, and Rocky's he's very successful. What, developer, builder? You're an insurance guy. I don't know. You got all kinds of businesses, right?
Who, me?
Yeah, you.
So, I mean, I guess what's true. So my legitimate business is I own a construction company, so we're a general contractor.
Okay.
And so we're a service disabled veteran-owned small business general contractor, and we do work primarily with the VA hospital.
Awesome.
Around in Pennsylvania, in West Virginia, eastern part of Ohio, and so we've been on those jobs specifically. And then we also do from a corporate entity is that we have on Veterans Day we help my whole crew of guys. We go out and we do renovations on veteran homes. We'll come in and spend a weekend, rip it all out, put it all in, put new equipment in, whatever it is, and so on, to give them a better place to live. So we're very proud about doing that. So I do that, and then, the other business, I get a chance to go and speak to veteran groups, et cetera, and try to support.
And folks, he's playing that down. This guy is an in-demand public speaker, and I know you probably have a different presentation to it. This will be mainly a Vietnam veteran group you're going to speak to on the 30th, but I know you just do good motivational speaking and things like that.
Yeah, when I get a chance to talk to or Vietnam veterans, and it's just to kind of put it in perspective of that period of time, and the importance of serving our country. I can only, as we well know, experiences are experiences, no matter where you are. Iraq, Afghanistan, the second Iraqi war that took place, and what they, and what they have gone through in those and it's so I talk about that, and just if it's Vietnam veterans, then I'll talk about that. I'll talk about serving it. We were sent across the I-234 Corps, from the DMZ down to the Delta, and the commitment that we made during that period of time.
Well, along with that, I just want you to know, and this is what the Vietnam vets tell me. I said, I've had some guilt with me not going, and I had a lot of friends go, and friends one of my best friends committed suicide 6 months after he got back. He was a 3-tour gunner and a Huey, but I think he went crazy with it, or something, whatever it was. But this is all. If I never make a dime from that movie, this is what means $1 million to me. Is they say you are doing your service now, and I go, how's that? They go, because you're keeping our true story alive. You're keeping it going forward, because in schools, public schools anyway, they're not being taught anything about this. I mean, the parents tell me, the grandparents, they bring little kids to this film. I mean, I'll say, well, there's some National Archive. It's not gory, but there's some blood in there. There's some combat. They said they have to see this after. They think we all just went in there and killed babies. That's what we did for a living. No, we built orphanages. We did a lot of good stuff. Every war has problems like that, but.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, it is, and it's so important, to be able to talk about it, and to get it out, and this is what people have gone through, and soldiers have gone through, and so on, and it's not always easy.
No, we had many. In fact, when we did these interviews, which probably reached 80 to 100 interviews, and of course they don't make the film, but we, if you see somebody on screen for 2 or 3 minutes, we probably interviewed them for anywhere from an hour and a half to 3 hours to get what we're, I guess you call the money shot in a way, which that can be used in different terminology, but that whatever that is, it was like, that's a keeper right there. But a lot of them we explained, we can stop the camera, you can take a deep breath, whatever, you're in charge, whatever you want to do. But as we get into it, because Dave is a master at interviewing somebody who's just gone through a disaster, fires, tornadoes, loved ones lost, whatever. But we had many of them say, they'd say, well, stop the camera, and go, well, that one's over. And they go, I just want to let you guys know, I've never told anybody these stories. You even mentioned it in the intro. And then I would go, well, how do you feel? I feel better, And then when we show the film, the wives and the kids, and they all come out and go, this is the first time we're knowing a lot of this stuff. So it's kind of, we've heard bits and pieces that Dad put together, but then we see this, and now it all goes together, and it all makes sense. And, we don't take on the whole war. We focus on a particular topic of these guys landing in a beach and going, for 3 days, I'm back in Malibu. I'm back in Cocoa Beach. I'm back in Hawaii. I'm back, it's like a dream thing, and that's got them through the war, a lot of them. I mean, Larry Martin, who's Mr. China Beach, would shout out to Larry, who's just fighting cancer, and we think he's beat it. He was the main guy at the surf club there, but, he had a footlocker full of letters when he came in as our main consultant. And it was just, I was reading these letters. They were from Australia. They were from Hawaii. They were from New York. And just guys going, you helped me make it through that war in 2 days or 3 days at the beach, or when we came back. And, for a moment, you escaped. And, you got to eat steak and have a cookout and drink beer with your friends and all that. So it's, you could put people in the right frame of mind, and it does a lot. And I think these vets on the 30th, if they've never heard you speak, they're going to go, look at this guy. I mean, this guy's been wounded to hell. He's made it in the NFL, which you usually don't make it if you're, even if you are not wounded in Vietnam. And, so it's, you just, by de facto, you're an inspiration. And we all see that. And I know you don't make a big deal out of it, but it is a big deal. And so we love you, man. And we just can't wait to see you. And you got a lot of your pals you're going to see when you get to Fort Walton Beach. And you're welcome down here anytime, buddy. I mean, I got it wired, all the clubs, all the music. I got a big house out in the country, so I'll give you my house and stay here. So you may not want to go home now. And we have the Naval Museum here, which is incredible. And what do we got, Mark? We got 5, 6 bases, Air Force, Army, all military. So it's huge. It's a huge, and what a great place for us to start a film like this. We got it going because they a lot of them lived here, so it was easy to find them. So anyway, so we're going to sign out, and would you come back again and maybe talk about some of the funny things that happened in the NFL?
Okay.
All right.
We can do this. Yeah, anytime.
All right, brother. Thank you very much, Rocky.
All right, Mike.
Hang on the line here. Yeah, hang on the line here. We're going to clear the recording, and off we go. And we're good. Hey, Rocky, thanks a lot, man. I really appreciate it.
Okay.
All right, buddy. I'll see you on the 30th.
All right.
God bless you. Thank you.